Hey guys, you all know that I love leveraging podcasts, and obviously you have to promote it to get more authority and exposure. And I've been looking for someone for quite a while to how do I leverage Pinterest? Should I even dive into Pinterest? And so when I came across Kate for Simple Pin Media, I was like, oh yeah, baby, I'm bringing her on. And the fact too, Kate, that you have your own podcast, Simple Pin Podcast, it's like it couldn't be more perfect.
I know. I'm happy to help bring it all together and tie it into a neat little bow.
Sweet deal. And yeah, we were talking beforehand, and obviously I was checking out your Pinterest profile, and I was like, oh my God, where have I been? Like it looks totally different. And I didn't really, we'll get into some of the pieces, but I was like, video, Pinterest TV. I'm like, what? So I'm like, my mind is going. I'm like, ooh, like all the possibilities for podcasters to use Pinterest to attract more listeners, to engage and convert. I was just like, sweet. So I'm like super pumped about diving into this. So my first question is like, what has happened in the past few years in Pinterest land?
Yeah, great question. So, okay, we'll go 2019, they went public. 2020, we had the pandemic and they had explosive growth, like doubled, both in North America and then globally. And then once everybody kind of was out of pandemic land and going back to life, they started to lose users. But in that short period of time, what they did was they pushed a lot of initiatives through. And part of that was because, okay, we've got all these users now. We want to capture a little bit what's happening in social media, which is TikTok and Reels, because Reels were introduced August of 2020. And it seems like with this rise of TikTok, you see all these other platforms kind of trying to follow in the footsteps and capture watch time. And one of the unique parts about Pinterest is that it's a search and discovery platform. It's not a social media platform, which means that people have different habits when they approach the platform. They go to look for ideas and then they leave. Well, that was not appealing to advertisers. So Pinterest has this problem, massive flood of users, people don't stick around. So you end up creating things like idea pins, which very closely match Reels and TikToks, right? And then they introduced Pinterest TV, which we'll talk about in a minute. But these idea pins were their main push because they didn't link. So what that created was this thing where you walk through how to do something, walk through an idea, walk through parts, and then the people save it and then they continue to watch, right? Like TikTok, they have these aha moments. They're very much similar with that learning how to do things. And we see people having those aha moments from TikToks, and Pinterest really wanted to capture that. The problem is that Pinterest user base, because it's so primed to leave, whereas TikTok's user base is primed to stay and keep watching. And they were very frustrated with these idea pins. And so you saw Pinterest start to lose all the gains they had made from 2020. So they are in this place of what we call like a reckoning of what new features and the user habits, how are those going to work together now to grow and leverage the platform, shopping integrations, lots of great things.
That's crazy.
But it doesn't look the same as it has in the past, but that ecosystem is still the same of it's search and discovery. We put it in the bucket of Pinterest or YouTube and Google. They're kind of in that same category.
And that's what I like about Pinterest, because it's so easy to find what you're looking for. It's their, keywords, categorization, whatever you want to call it, is very, you can keep narrowing it down and find what you need, which sometimes it's impossible. You do go down some rabbit holes, but
100% rabbit holes. But yeah, that's you go with that intent of how can I find something that serves me? Whereas when I go to Instagram or TikTok, I'm really getting lost in someone else's story.
Yeah.
So it's a really great way to think about that as you approach it for your marketing, is you're entering into somebody's searches and they're looking for features and benefits and tools. They're not looking for you or your business. They don't care about that. They care
Right.
about being served. And that's the number one mistake we see marketers make when they approach the platform is they say, this is how it works on Instagram. So I'm just going to take everything I have there,
Yeah.
try to repurpose and put it on Pinterest. And it falls flat every single time.
That's a huge tip to understand. Like, and you're just understanding the avatar and how people are using that platform. So your material or knowledge or tips or whatever, it has to be put on that way so that it is consumed and not,
right,
like you said, fall flat. So can you, I'm having a hard time picturing what you mean by idea pin.
Okay. So think of the closest cousin is an Instagram story.
Okay.
Where it's broken up into slides. But instead of being time-based and person-based, we're taking it into 3 parts. So maybe it is how to become a guest on a podcast. Let's just take that as an example. Number 1, here's the pitch. Number 2, here's the match probably first, then the pitch, then the follow-up or whatever it is. That is around forever. It's evergreen. So somebody could search it and find this idea pin, or it could be something like how to create the best Moscow mule. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 are all in these slides. So it's giving very bite-sized information. But again, it's about the project or the features or the tool or the how-to,
right?
Not the same as an Instagram story when it's like, hey, everybody, it's Wednesday, it's podcast day, blah, blah, blah. They don't really care about that.
Yeah, it's not a commentary.
No, exactly. And it can be static images and it can be short form video too as well. So it can use both of those mediums in there.
That's good to know. And curious as to, because I always love to know what tools people are using. Like obviously for me and other people, we use Canva.
Yeah.
But a lot of the features like within Instagram, especially stories, all those highlights and those extra things that you add are app specific. So because I always automatically go into like, okay, logistically, how am I going to make this happen? So like, what kind of tools do you use?
Yeah. So there's a couple. Well, number 1, we always say just native within Pinterest. So creating in there, but we do use Canva templates. So some presets that are built to the right size, because there's some gray areas where you don't want to go outside of that with like text. You can record your video and then upload it. Some people are using things like InShot, or maybe they are creating their full idea pin set inside Canva. Then they're downloading it to their phone and then they're uploading it to Pinterest.
Okay.
But the biggest thing is just using the phone and playing around with it, because another feature of an idea pin is you can tag a product that you have. So if you are a product seller, you can tag it in the idea pin, and you can only do that on your phone. Yeah. And then you can also tag an affiliate link. And again, you can only do that on your phone too as well. So it's mostly in app that we're really developing the idea pins, with the exception of presets.
I hate when they do that. Why can't stuff be on desktop?
I know.
Like, as a business owner, it's like, I don't want to be on my phone and it's so little.
I know. You can create them on your desktop too if you want to, but you're super limited in features. But
I know.
No, I agree too. It's like, I can't see it.
It drives me nuts.
Totally.
And then to have your team do it and stuff like that, I don't know. It's just awkward for me, but
yes,
it is what it is. Now, before we kind of relate all this to podcasters, I want to touch upon, like how to use video, or like I saw Pinterest TV and my mind was blown.
Yes. Okay. So there's 2 separate things. So video on Pinterest can be uploaded at any time. We recommend less than a minute or a minute 30. And so that can be maybe it's taking like an idea pin concept of step 1, 2, 3, 4, and you just put it all together into a video.
Smart.
Videos are still clickable. So you can click on the title and you can go to the website, whereas you can't click in an idea pin. Gotcha. They are beta testing links on idea pins, so that you should be able to link soon. I think they had a ton of complaints from their users that it didn't go anywhere, which is the common complaint of Pinterest anyway over the years, is like, I click on this and it's a dead link. Yeah. So
sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I'm like,
I know. So I think they got so much feedback and just really people upset. So those links are coming. Pinterest TV. So this is really interesting because it's a highly curated TV channel platform.
Okay.
So think of it, nobody like you and I can't get access to it. Only people who have been hand selected by Pinterest can do it. And it's a highly produced show. So in the beginning, it was very fuzzy, like, okay, this is beta. Is anybody going to be able to do this? No, it's hand curated. So if you had like, they're looking at seasons saying like, okay, HGTV type of thing is where they're going, what they're thinking. So it's trying to get these makers, creators, very much again, that HGTV Food Network, but on Pinterest. So I can watch you do something. So it's almost like a streaming hybrid too. So it's going to be interesting to see how the users respond to it. And that's where I think we're still in that reckoning piece is Pinterest users are introverts, they're not interested in having conversations, which is the beautiful part about Pinterest. Because there's
That's an interesting piece of information too.
Yeah, exactly.
I never thought of it that way.
I don't want to talk to anybody. Like there's comments and stuff like that, but like, I'm not interested in following your life. I'm interested in how do I rearrange my living room furniture? Like talk to me about that. Just give me a plan. Right. And so they want this they've always been striving for a communal element, and it just has fallen flat the multiple times that they've tried. So I think this is this is a way to bring in like a human element to it where you see people and they're having these conversations and you can chat with them during the show, but it's not this constant threads where you get caught like on Instagram or Facebook and people are mean and whatever. Pinterest very much wants to remain the positive platform. And so that's where they're positioning Pinterest TV is to teach you how to do something, but you can interact with the maker and you can ask them questions.
That's cool. And I can see how it does relate. It's like, to me, it's like very like craft, DIY, decorating your home, whatever that may be, food for sure. And then, so like that whole DIY HGTV Food Network, like it just kind of like, mirrors it. So like to partner it up a little bit. I can see how that would be cool, but yeah, interesting to know that it's very select. So you're a podcaster, obviously, and I'm sure your clients are podcasters as well. So like, is it worth going on Pinterest? Like to me in my head, I'm like, okay, if I'm a podcaster and I don't know, am in interior design or I sell things for the home, or like to me in my brain, it just lends itself to specific types of podcasts. Yes. Or would you say it's like full gamut? Anyone can go for it.
Yeah, I would say the one factor that you have to have is an evergreen type of podcast. So something that's like, The Daily or something that is you're doing these time-based things that doesn't so much have a place on Pinterest because of the way their algorithm works. Like you're not going to see something in the moment. You might see something 6 months later because that's when either you're searching for it or maybe you have been searching for that topic and Pinterest goes, oh, you're interested. We're going to tuck this into your feed. So if you're a podcaster, that's a daily thing. I would say it's not really worth your time.
But if you have time sensitive stuff. Yeah,
exactly. But like what you said about like home and DIY, absolutely. Because you just never know when somebody's going to be searching for something and need your solution, which can lead to your podcast.
Right. That makes sense. So like I went into Pinterest today and I searched podcasting or podcasts because I just was curious as to what came up and there was like a ton of assets in there of like how to launch, how to edit, how to whatever. And I thought, oh, interesting. So I guess even kind of doing that R&D and like punching in your main keywords, you know what I mean? And just kind of like see what's out there.
Yeah, that's another tip I give people in addition to the kind of like framing up your marketing for the platform is use the app for 30 minutes. Just play around with it, mess with it, do your keyword search, like just see what you like and what you don't like. Cause I always think the best marketers on a platform know the platform well because they're a consumer first.
Yeah.
And so when you open up the app and you look at it like you did, you're like, what is Pinterest TV? What are these idea pins? What's all these new features? That allows you to approach them and figure out how to frame up how to use them. Right. And so that is an excellent thing to do for the topic of your podcast. Look at what's there, do it in short and long tail keywords, ask questions like how to start a podcast or just podcasting.
Yeah.
Just look at what's there. And you might be surprised, even if you search your name, somebody might be saving your content already because they find it valuable. Because we remember the user habit is first to find great stuff, whether it's, content or products, and save it to their boards.
That's true.
So and there's no private, there's like secret boards on Pinterest, but all profiles are public. So I can see what everybody's pinning at any time.
And so are boards still a thing?
Yeah.
And so that would be as a user of what I'm collecting, but me as a profile, would I have boards?
Yeah.
Obviously I use it on a personal level. I haven't even thought about it on a professional level, to be honest.
Yeah, no, this will be great then. So then I can explain it to you and you can be like, wait, that doesn't make sense. So a business profile, it's like the top basically gives that billboard. Here's what we are. Here's our open sign. This is what we do in a very short, succinct way. Here's the link to my website. You can claim your account too, which makes you approved by Pinterest. So they can see your business profile owns this website. You two are connected. It's like a verified business account, right? So underneath there, you have boards, which we like to refer to as silos or buckets for your content. So if you talk about 5 main parts, you can put these into 5 boards. And what Pinterest does is they take the board keywords and they see it's named Pinterest marketing for podcasters. And then they have a board description, which gives a 1 to 2 sentence structure of this is what this board is about, Pinterest for podcasters. And then every pin that goes in there is about Pinterest for podcasting. And then the pin descriptions in there support that with keywords as well. So then Pinterest will crawl all of the content looking for these keywords. And if someone happens to come across a pin that's located in that board, they don't necessarily have to go to the board, but let's say they find it out there or search it. Once they click on it, once they save it, that tells Pinterest that person is interested in Pinterest for podcasting. So the very first thing they do is go back to that board and they put content in front of them from there.
Oh.
And that's kind of how the algorithm works. Is that
useful? So
I can say Susie is our regular pinner. They want to design the perfect home feed. That's what they call it when you open up your Pinterest app that matches what she's interested in, who she follows, and then ads, obviously, for targeting. So then that stuff starts getting funneled into the home feed because they don't want Susie to have to guess about what she wants. They want everything to be pulled towards her. And so that's how those boards are relevant, because it provides the support the algorithm needs to know what buckets of content are out on the platform.
That's huge. That really, my brain can process that. And I'm like, okay. And that's why the searches, it's so easy to find what you need because there's the boards or the keywords, the description, the pins, it all has an infrastructure that is logical. Unlike Facebook to me.
Oh, totally. People come to us all the time and they feel so confused by Pinterest. But what's very fascinating is Pinterest is always run on the search of keywords and the search of images. Always. There's never really been a quote unquote trick. And that's what I think people come and they apply that okay, what time do I have to pin? Can I say this? Can I not say this? It's no. You just really have to make sure that your keyword structure is lined up with the keywords that are on there. There's another great tool called Trends. And it's trends.pinterest.com. And you can see what keywords are trending and when throughout the year. And what's great is they've leveled it up you can search by Canada, UK, and the US right now, which is really helpful because we know our Independence Day is July 4th, yours is July 1st. So that's going to look different if you're searching those different holidays, right? Or different times that people are looking for, how do I work at home or something along those lines.
Yeah. Oh, that's good to know.
Having that frame of reference helps you not get caught in the weeds of, did I do it right?
Trying to figure out something that doesn't exist.
Right. Exactly.
So I've seen people post, their blogs, obviously, and I've clicked on them and visited and read. And and what have you, which I find super helpful. So as a podcaster, is it viable to share your podcast episodes?
Yeah. So this is a tricky one, and mostly because you have app to app integration that can get clunky.
Okay.
So and also so I have an iPhone, and if I share an Apple Podcast link and somebody with an Android clicks on it, they can't see it, right? So they're watching things on Spotify. So if you do that, it's very important that you tell them, listen to on Apple Podcasts in the image, not in the description below, because nobody's reading on Pinterest. They're only looking at the image. So if I know that and I see it's on Apple Podcasts, I might skip it, but at least it helps me know that maybe you've built that awareness that like, also on Spotify too, but like this will take you to Apple. It's why we don't recommend like you pin something from Instagram to go to Instagram or to YouTube, because the app to app integrations are so clunky in the way that they open up on your phone. So
but
it's really about
going to my website post where I've got like the player, the show notes, all that good stuff. Okay.
Yep. 100%. And that's what we do too, as well, because we want people to come from Pinterest to that part of our website. And Pinterest for us is our number 2 traffic driver behind Google. And so we want people to come into it and know exactly how to qualify themselves. And that's a little bit difficult to make the leap, especially because we found some of our people in our community, they don't like podcasts. You know, it's like you either love podcasts or you don't. Like, there's those people who are like a complete visceral reaction with podcasts, but they will read, right?
Yeah.
So we do create really great show notes for those who do want to read, just to give them enough context to where they feel like they still got an answer to their question without listening.
And got some value.
Yes.
Now, what other ways could a podcaster use podcasts? Like for me, I do like quote images or like just standalone posts that are tips, infographics, or I also do audiograms. And then also those square videos where it's just like a 60-second clip within the podcast. So just to help kind of frame up some of the moving pieces that I do anyways.
Yeah. So one of the things to think about is whatever you share in whatever way is that, like, one, they're not watching with sound, so they're always reading captions. And number 2, they are in the billboard advertising mode. So think about driving by on a freeway. You only have 1 second to frame up exactly what it is to pull them in.
Right.
And so it's very big buzzwords. Quotes are great if you want people to just save it, but it doesn't necessarily take action, right? So I'm not against it, but it's more,
it's not really what they're looking for. It's not like a how-to or a tip that they can implement. Or like
they feel inspired by it. And then they're like, oh yeah, it's really cool. Save for later. And then it goes into like the bowels of a board and never gets seen again. Right. An infographic has too much information. So the same thing happens. So people, and they don't take action. So if we follow that same thread of getting people to move off and learn more, really one of the best, we've done the audiograms too, but again, it doesn't always help because they don't have the sound on. So if you could have something with captions and maybe like a title at the top that is a really like how to get more listeners to your podcast. Well, that's going to get me in right away. And then I might turn the sound on and then I might click over after that. Pinterest users are very cold. So we think of them as they take a long time to make a decision. They lurk, right? Like they're going to gather like 150 throw pillows to their board before they choose to buy one, because they're
I love that analogy.
They're so like,
true.
I want to have all my options. And so when it comes to our marketing of the podcast, we recommend you start with like 3 main methods, which is a standard pin image, which is just an image of the podcast or whatever you want to use. For us, we've used faces of guests. We've not done faces of guests, but we definitely do a punchy, catchy headline. That's number 1. Then number 2, we put that into an idea pin, maybe like 3 parts kind of extracted. So we can like tease their interest. And then the 4th slide in the idea pin is search Simple Pin podcast on all players, because then I know I've given them the tool that if they're interested, they're on their phone so they can easily pick up and go, oh yeah, Okay, I'll do that. Right.
Yeah.
So that's really what we're looking for, is how do we just inspire action? And it sometimes is hard. So I really stress that with people who lean into Pinterest marketing, is that if you're going to do organic Pinterest marketing, you need to give yourself 6 to 8 months, because it's like a snowball, right? So something I pinned in 2017 is still driving traffic to my website.
Nice.
Probably the majority of it, like 500 to 600 clicks a month of just a post that I did. And then people are signing up for my email. So those things can happen. It just takes time.
Yeah. That's good to know. And honestly, it's the same thing with podcasting, right? It's like, you're not going to get 1,000 downloads on your first 10 episodes. It's like, it has that snowball effect, and you have to wait for the traction to kick in.
Yep. Absolutely.
So yeah, same bat deal. Now I did see your like videos that you had, and it had captions, but they're like, you know how some text is small and then it's big. It's not just the boring caption at the bottom. That's like me. Like, is that within the app, or how do you do that?
You know, I have to look at which one I did, because sometimes we will repurpose things from like a reel from Instagram. So if we find that a reel is evergreen supported, like somebody could watch it in 6 months, and we're dealing with Pinterest here, so things can change like tomorrow. But if we feel like it can stand 6 months, we'll extract it and then we'll put it up that way. So sometimes they're pulling those captions over.
Right.
I recommend, and that's because I'm lazy, but I would recommend the raw video downloading, not the final product from Instagram, because then you do get their captions. Sometimes you can't always put, if you have music to it, you can't put that on Pinterest too, like it'll go silent as well. But that's how I probably got those captions, was me just being a lazy marketer.
Hey man, I totally get that. I get that in so many ways. How can I reuse this?
1000%.
There's too many things for us to do, right? It's like so many little moving pieces, so many things to create. At least in Pinterest, it's not fly by night. Like it's going to stay there and can still get traction 6 months later. That to me is like, whoo.
Yeah. And there has been, I will say, it supports also what you're doing with Google, right? Because the more you get this traffic coming to your website and the more that's supported, that supports Google. And for us, that's how we use the two in conjunction. And I have from day one, like that was kind of my first thing, was I want to leverage SEO and I want to leverage Pinterest. And they both have the same mindsets in where they're going to look for a solution. And so how do we have the destination on our website be that solution to their problem?
Yeah.
And so that, speaking of repurposing, that was easy, right? Because you're not a slave to this like Reels, TikTok stuff that changes every 2 seconds.
Yeah, I know. That frustrates me. What are some of the big mistakes that you see people do on Pinterest?
Well, I think number one is moving things from other platforms and just repurposing it, but not thinking of, you know, the person who's consuming consuming it based on what we talked about in the beginning. Like the Pinterest user is different. Like they're not interested in your story. And that's really hard for those of us who have used TikTok or Reels and even podcasting to tell a story. You have to pull it back and say, what is the benefit for the person listening to the story? What will they walk away with?
Yeah.
That's what you put on Pinterest. And so there's that. I think there's also not giving it enough time. People get in there and they think 3 to 4 months and they feel really frustrated. And I've been doing this for 8 years now. I get it. It's the same thing over and over. You got to keep going. It's like when people tell you you're working out and they're like, just keep going, it'll happen. You're like, that's BS, right? But no, it's not true. Like it will actually happen. I promise. And it's a really good lever in your marketing to pull. Like, I think ignoring it is a big mistake because it's a whole different group of people. And I've seen businesses say, if I look at my analytics, the people I get from Instagram are warm and they're repeat. The people I get from Pinterest are cold and they're new. And if I want to grow my business, I can't rely on the new and repeat. I have to get new. And so cold leads are hard for everybody, whether you're a service provider or a new reader. And so you have to put yourself in a place where cold feels cold. Like, it's like, pitching people and you never hear anything. Like, that's exactly what Pinterest is, but you will hit on it and you will start to grow. And last, I would say, just knowing your why. We talk a lot in our teaching about strategy versus tactics, and strategy for us is, why are you using Pinterest? That's your strategy. I'm using Pinterest to ... And my tactics might change based on the things that change in the algorithm, or I'm going to change up my images, or I'm going to do these things. So not to get those confused, because your strategy never changes. And a lot of people will be like, what's your Pinterest strategy? Well, it's to use Pinterest to grow my email list, to educate people how to use Pinterest. Like, that's just what we do. And they're like, I don't know why I'm using it. Well, that's your problem. You're leading with the first question to me is always, how many times a day do I pin? Well, that's a very subjective question. I have no idea how much content you create. I don't know what your goals are. I don't know any of that stuff. And so it's really sitting down and writing your strategy statement after you spend 30 minutes on your phone, just checking it out.
Yeah. That's perfect. Now, I heard you mention either the word statistics or analytics. So do you get that stuff at the back of Pinterest? Obviously you see how many followers you get, but what else can you learn?
Yeah, with a business account, their analytics have gotten amazing, which is really great, because we used to only rely on Google Analytics for that information. And Google Analytics is now horrible. And Pinterest has now come in and we can see a lot, much more than any other social platform, actually.
Really?
You can really drill down to clicks, saves, engagements, close-ups. Tons of things are in there on different pin types, standard pins, idea pins, video pins. It's really, I would say, they have leveled up their analytics tremendously, which is very helpful to guide your marketing.
Yeah, that's great. Because that's what helps you kind of like move forward and pivot and figure out what's working and not working. So like, some platforms are horrible and you're like, I feel like I'm, throwing spaghetti on the wall and hoping it sticks.
And the impressions of something they don't really tell you a whole lot. Like, somebody saw it. I don't know what they did with it,
Yeah. Or if they're, exactly. Well, that's perfect. You have answered all of my questions.
Woohoo!
I secretly had you on for me and my purpose only.
Well, I'm happy to help.
But it's like, as podcasters, we need to know what the options are, right? Like, maybe there's an untapped strategy where you can just get a flood of new leads, obviously over time. But this was really eye-opening. I really appreciate you giving us all of the nitty-gritty.
Absolutely.
And having patience with all my questions.
I love them.
So obviously, I think it would be amazing for people to go to Simple Pin Podcast, check out your podcast, and obviously your Pinterest account, your videos, your idea pins. Like, not only are they eye-catching, it's easy to absorb the information quickly. And it's just like so well done. So really good job.
Thank you. Yeah, you can Pinterest.com/simplepinmedia, all one word. Perfect. That's I love that you were inspired by that, because that's really our goal, is to be kind of a leader in how we use Pinterest to the best, so that people can go and be inspired to do that for their own brand, for sure.
Absolutely. And it's extremely well branded. It's kind of like you just look at your wall and you're like, like it all looks perfect.
Thank you. That's not me. That's a great team of designers that have helped. I'm challenged that way.
Awesome. And remind me what your website is so that people can go there and get more tips and more resources from you.
Yeah, simplepinmedia.com. And then I am at simplepinmedia on all social channels. So we share a lot of tips on Instagram too, of just things you need to be doing bite size in the moment.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being on.
Yeah, you bet.
All right. See ya.